It began with something so small, so ordinary, it could have been missed entirely. A stuck wheelchair, a cold airport terminal, and a necklace that hadn't meant anything to anyone in years except her. Marilyn Davis wasn't the kind of woman who waited for recognition. She was used to being underestimated. An aerospace engineer with a sharp mind, quiet presence, and skin that made people assume she was the assistant, not the one building rescue drones that saved lives. She didn't explain herself anymore. She showed up, did the work, and let the results speak, even if nobody ever listened. That winter afternoon at Chicago O'Hare, the snow was falling sideways against the glass. Delayed flights stacked on the boards like insults. People sighed, huffed, cursed under their breath. Marilyn didn't too. She simply found an empty gate, dropped her bag, and took out her laptop. Work was focus. Focus was control. But just as she plugged in her charger, she noticed him. A man in a dark coat, seated by the window in a wheelchair, alone. One wheel catching awkwardly every time he tried to shift. Most people looked away. Marilyn didn't too. She stood, walked over, and asked the question that would unravel her entire past. Need a hand? His voice was low. Left wheel keeps sticking. This floor's not made for people like me. I've seen worse, she said, already kneeling beside him. Her fingers brushed the rubber, then the axle. You've got debris caught in the track. He watched her, curious. You're an engineer? Aerospace. Drones mostly, not wheelchairs, but it's all just mechanics. Efficient. I try. They shared a strange rhythm hymn, pushing her steadying until the wheel straightened. She stood and offered a brief nod. That should hold you for now. Thanks, he said, extending a hand. Brian Miller. She hesitated just a second too long before shaking it. Marilyn Davis. There was a flicker behind his eyes. A reaction. Quick, controlled. Like her name had landed somewhere he didn't expect. You look like you could use a break too, he added, gesturing to the chair next to him. Something in his tone, not flirtation, but something gentler, tired, maybe nudged her to sit. The kind of tired that goes beyond jet lag. The kind that settles in the bones after years of fighting quiet wars. They sat in silence, watching the snow blur the world outside. Just two strangers, sharing a quiet moment of breath. And then, his eyes landed on the silver chain around her neck. That's an unusual piece, he said. Looks old. It is, she replied, fingers instinctively brushing the pendant. Gift? Yes, she said, more clipped this time. From someone important. He's gone now. Brian didn't press, but something changed in his face, a tightening behind the eyes, the kind of look someone makes when the past just showed up without knocking. Across the terminal, Marilyn noticed a man staring at her, not the usual glance. A long, assessing look, like her posture offended him, like her confidence needed permission. She didn't flinch. She'd seen that look her whole life. Brian noticed too. That guy's got a problem, he muttered, barely moving his lips. Ignore it, she said. I do, he replied, but you shouldn't have to. She blinked, not at what he said, but how casually he said it. When she pulled out her laptop and opened a 3D render of her latest drone, he leaned closer. You built that? From scratch. My team's pitching tomorrow in San Francisco. If it lands, we expand into urban rescue ops. He stared at the screen, then at her. You built that, and you're sitting here like everybody else? She didn't smile, just looked at him squarely. The world doesn't hand out respect just because you're competent, especially not to women like me. He didn't interrupt, just listened. Women like me, she continued, walk into rooms where people assume we're assistants. We get pulled out of security lines more. We smile more, speak softer, because one wrong step becomes a stereotype. He finally spoke. That's not right. No, she said, but it's real. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, something colder had begun to melt. He looked at her again. If you ever need an investor, someone who actually sees what you're doing, I know people. Marilyn's brow lifted. And why would you help me? He hesitated, just a second. Then, because someone once helped me, when I didn't deserve it. Her eyes narrowed, the way he said it. Not pity, not pride, more like regret. She stood. Appreciate it, but I don't need saving. I didn't say you did. As she walked toward the vending machine, he watched her go, his eyes not on her, but on the pendant. That necklace. That damn necklace. It wasn't just any silver trinket. It had belonged to Richard, and Brian Miller would have recognized it anywhere. But he said nothing. Not yet. Marilyn returned to her seat, a bottle of water clutched in one hand, a quiet suspicion clutched in the other. Brian hadn't just noticed the necklace, he'd recognized it. The way his eyes had locked on it too long, too still, she'd seen that look before. Not admiration, recognition, pain. She didn't need more proof. Her instincts were precise. Years of being overlooked had taught her how to see everything. He was still staring out the window as she sat down beside him. Snow blurred the glass into gray static. You didn't ask who gave me the necklace, she said low. Brian didn't turn. I figured you didn't want to talk about it. I don't, she replied, but you already know. Now he turned. His jaw tightened. He exhaled once before saying, "It belonged to Richard. Richard Miller, my brother." The air between them turned solid. Not just tension, truth. And truth had a weight. "I didn't know he had a brother," Marilyn said. "You're not the only one he kept things from." His voice was bitter now, clipped. "We had different mothers, same father, but he kept us, compartmentalized, like files on a hard drive." "That sounds like him," she said quietly. They both looked away. Marilyn leaned forward, elbows on her knees. "We met 4 years ago at a fundraiser for aerospace education. He barely spoke at first, but when he did, it was like the world faded out." Brian gave a faint, hollow laugh. "That sounds like Richard too. We were together 3 years, and he never once mentioned you." Brian's eyes flickered. He probably thought he was protecting you. "From what?" He didn't answer right away. "From us. From all of it. He never trusted the family knot after Evelyn took over." The name landed like a stone in Marilyn's chest. "Evelyn Moore?" Brian nodded. "She married our father after Richard turned 21. When he died, Evelyn inherited Moretech. Not Richard, not me. She's smart, strategic, and dangerous." Marilyn looked down at the necklace, fingers tracing its edge. Richard never talked about his past, but in that last year, something changed. He got quieter, jittery, distant. I thought it was burnout. Brian's hands tightened on the armrests. "He came to me once, said he'd found something big. He didn't explain, just said Evelyn was hiding contracts, surveillance programs, off-the-books payments." Marilyn inhaled sharply. "I was told he died of a heart attack." Brian looked at her slowly. "They said it was an overdose." She froze. "He never used anything, hated even taking aspirin," Brian continued. "But they cremated him within 48 hours. No autopsy. I wasn't even allowed to see the body." She stared at him. "They told me his heart gave out on a flight. Sudden, peaceful." Brian's voice turned cold. "That sounds like Evelyn. Quick, quiet, clean." Marilyn pressed her palm against the pendant, the only thing he'd left behind. She had worn it every day since that awful phone call. It had felt like closure. Now it felt like a warning. Across the terminal, movement caught her eye. A man in a gray coat stood at the far end of the lounge, watching them, pretending not to. He pulled out a phone, said nothing, moved nowhere. "You see him?" she whispered. Brian didn't turn. "Yeah." "You think Evelyn sent someone?" "I don't know," he murmured, "but if Richard found something, and gave it to you, someone has a reason to watch." Marilyn felt the pendant again. It was heavier than it should have been. Suddenly, the board above them blinked. "Final call, Flight 804 to San Francisco." They rose without speaking. Brian rolled beside her as they approached the gate. Her steps were brisk, but not rushed. Her mind was already racing ahead. They boarded quietly. The plane was dim, half full. She took the window, Brian next to her. As the aircraft began taxiing, the silence inside felt louder than the roar of the engine. "Do you think Richard knew he wouldn't make it out?" she asked, eyes still fixed outside. Brian didn't answer. She turned toward him. "If he did, do you think he left something behind for me?" He looked at her. "I think he trusted you with the one thing Evelyn couldn't touch." Her hand gripped the necklace tighter. Back in San Francisco, the rain fell like cold ash. The terminal buzzed around them, but Marilyn barely heard it. Her phone buzzed. "Kevin Davis, incoming call." She answered. "Hey, you're here?" her brother asked, voice clipped. "Just landed. I filed the petition to reopen Dad's case. The state won't like it." "They never do." He hesitated. "You find anything?" She looked at Brian, who pretended not to listen, then back at her reflection in the rain-specked glass. "I think I did," she said. "I'll tell you soon." At the hotel, Kevin opened the door before she knocked. Young, sharp, angry at the world, but brilliant. "You look like hell," he said, arms crossed. "You're as charming as ever." "I'm also right," he said, stepping aside. "Come in." She didn't waste time. She unclasped the necklace, laid it on a towel. "I think there's something inside this." Kevin examined it. His fingers moved quickly over the chain, testing the weight, balance, edges. "I need you to scan it, but not on Wi-Fi. Not on anything they can trace." Kevin nodded. "Go red." "Got it." As he connected the pendant to his laptop through a modified adapter, Marilyn held her breath. The screen blinked. A folder appeared. Kevin hovered over a single video file. "You ready?" She nodded. The video loaded. Richard's face appeared on screen, hollow-eyed, soft-spoken, tired. "If you're watching this, I'm gone." Richard's face filled the screen like a ghost who had waited too long to speak. "If you're watching this, I'm dead." His voice was calm, but there was something frayed behind it, like a man running out of time. "I couldn't tell you everything, Evelyn. She's always watching, but I found it. The DoD contract. It's not just fraud. It's surveillance, hidden inside defense funding. Civilian targets. Your father tried to stop it. They framed him. Marilyn gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. They'll come for you too. The recording ended. No goodbye. Just a black screen. Kevin froze. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, but he didn't type. Jesus, he whispered. Marilyn stood back like she'd been struck. The room tilted. The weight of the truth crashed into her like a tidal wave. They set him up, she breathed. They set Dad up, and they killed Richard to bury it. A knock shattered the silence. Kevin jumped. Marilyn's hand flew into her bag, clutching the flashlight she always carried. Brian's voice came from the other side. It's me. Kevin opened the door. Brian looked at Marilyn, then at the laptop, then back at the pendant still resting on the towel. You found something. She nodded, eyes sharp. She lied, she said. Your stepmother framed my father, and Richard died trying to tell the truth. Brian's face darkened. He picked up the pendant gently, as if it had just become sacred. What are you going to do now? Marilyn asked. His voice was low. I'm going to finish what he started. The plan formed quickly, not because they had time, but because they didn't. Kevin contacted a federal transparency lawyer. Marilyn sent encrypted pieces of the video to 2 media contacts she trusted. Brian made a call to a journalist he'd known from his military days, a war correspondent, now turned investigative bulldog. The name they all feared kept echoing. Obsidian, a surveillance program disguised as defense infrastructure, using civilians as test subjects, masking digital intrusion under the flag of national security. But the video wasn't enough. Not to crush Evelyn Moore. They needed the full records, the contracts, the infrastructure maps, the payment trails. Kevin tapped furiously on his laptop. We need someone inside Moore Tech. Brian paused. There's one person, he said. Leon Harrington. He was my father's advisor back before Evelyn took over. He left when she changed everything, said she was poisoning the foundation. Within 10 minutes, Kevin found an address in Daly City. They were out the door in 30. Harrington opened the door like he'd been waiting for a knock that might kill him. He was in his late 60s, deep lines under his eyes. His apartment smelled like dust, old paper, and fear that had settled into the walls. You brought ghosts, he muttered, but let them in. The moment Brian said Richard's name, Harrington's shoulders dropped. I told him not to push, he said hoarsely. Evelyn doesn't lose. She murdered him, Marilyn said. Her voice didn't shake, and she destroyed my father to cover her tracks. Harrington didn't argue. He opened a cabinet, pulled out a worn folder and a black box. This is what Richard gave me, the night before he died. Inside, copies of contracts, falsified budget memos, a signed approval letter by Evelyn Moore authorizing off-the-record surveillance on U.S. civilians. In the black box, a flash drive. Kevin plugged it in. Dozens of files opened. Emails, internal memos, maps of data centers. Then a name lit the screen. Project Obsidian Full Architecture Overview. And then gunshots outside. Brian wheeled fast to the window. A black SUV sat across the street, engine running, lights off. They found us, Harrington said. We need to go. They fled through the back alley, Marilyn's boots splashing through puddles. Kevin clutched the drive to his chest. Brian pushed hard through the uneven sidewalk. Harrington locked the door behind them, panting like the years had finally caught up. They reached an old storage unit near the docks. Unmarked, cold, no cameras. Safe for now, but not for long. Inside, the truth sat heavy. Brian broke the silence. My father died, thinking Richard hated him. He didn't, Marilyn said. Yes, he did, Brian replied. He watched our father hand the company to Evelyn, and Richard walked away. Marilyn crouched beside him. He walked away because he saw what Evelyn was becoming. He wanted to protect you. Brian's eyes burned. She put me in a wheelchair, he said. I confronted her. Told her I wanted an audit of Obsidian. A week later, my car lost brakes. I woke up in a hospital. She sat beside me pretending to care. You're still breathing, Marilyn said. That's what scares her most. He met her eyes. That's why Richard trusted you, because you don't run. Kevin cleared his throat. We have what we need, but it won't be enough if they kill the story. Marilyn turned. Then we go public, full exposure. Brian nodded. I'll contact the Guardian. They'll run it. Whistleblower protection, congressional pressure, and a knock. Every head turned. Brian rolled forward and yanked the door open. Slayer. Soaked in rain, hands raised. I'm not here to hurt anyone. Marilyn froze. You know her? Brian's voice was ice. My ex-fiancée. Claire stepped inside. I saw your name in Mortex logs. Then it vanished. That only happens when Evelyn wipes someone. I came to find you. Brian narrowed his eyes. Why? Because they're transferring Obsidian, she said, to a private contractor offshore. Once it's out, your evidence is worthless. She pulled a folder from her coat. Shipment schedules, account transfers, emails. Proof that Evelyn was moving fast. Too fast. You have a window, Claire said. 48 hours. After that, it's gone. Marilyn looked at the folder, then at Claire. You stole this? I had to, because last time I stayed silent, I lost everything. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, every breath felt like the last calm before war. Rain hit the rooftop in fast, uneven taps. The storage unit buzzed with cold silence, but no one inside was still. Marilyn stood at the folding table, both hands pressed to the documents Claire had brought. Contracts, transfer logs, offshore accounts. She looked up at Brian, at Kevin, at Claire, and she didn't see allies. She saw the last wall between truth and disappearance. If Evelyn moves this to a foreign contractor, she said quietly, everything we have becomes meaningless. No jurisdiction, no accountability. Brian nodded grimly. Then we move now. They launched a plan that shouldn't have worked. Kevin mapped the Mortec data center's infrastructure. Claire pulled up outdated blueprints from an old fire code submission. Brian arranged an unmarked logistics van using an expired corporate fleet credential. Marilyn? She memorized floor layouts like survival maps. They didn't wait until morning. By 11 p.m., they were parked 2 blocks away from the Mortec complex in Redwood City. It loomed ahead, black, sterile, monolithic, a fortress of modern fear. Claire led them through a bypassed panel in the rear service corridor. 10 minutes. That's all she could give them. Inside, they split up. Kevin and Claire headed to the upper control room to loop surveillance and isolate comms. Marilyn and Brian rolled literally into the belly of the building. The lower data vault, 5 floors underground, no elevator, just a winding, spiraling ramp. And that's where he waited. A man stepped from the shadows near the base of the ramp. Steel gray suit, ice blue eyes, not a guard, something worse. You must be Marilyn, he said. I'm Porter, Evelyn's fixer. Brian froze. You tried to kill me. Porter smiled faintly. I warned you. Marilyn took 1 step forward, flashlight clenched in her hand. You're standing in front of a vault full of crimes, she said. Move. His voice cooled. You think this ends with 1 leak? You're playing with national security. This isn't about your father. Marilyn's voice sharpened. You used that same excuse to bury him. Then she swung. The flashlight cracked against Porter's shoulder. He staggered. Brian wheeled forward and slammed the edge of his chair into the man's knee. Porter dropped. Go, Brian barked. They bolted. Inside the vault, the air was cold and mechanical. Racks of servers hummed with secrets. Marilyn yanked the USB from her coat. Brian slid to the main terminal. 60 seconds, he said. The system blinked alive. Passwords, encryption, firewalls folding like dominoes. On the screen, Obsidian, entire, civilian surveillance pattern, AI target tracking, payments to politicians, blackmail files. The clock ticked. 82%, 91%. Gunfire cracked above them. Marilyn flinched. 100%. Brian ripped the USB. Let's move. They surfaced through a back exit. Claire was waiting, blood on her sleeve, but upright. Kevin pale but breathing. They didn't speak until they were halfway across the city, hiding in the shadows of street lamps. Back at the safe house, no one slept. At dawn, they entered Evelyn Moore's estate. No lawyers, no security, just her. Waiting. Black dress. Cold smile. A queen in decline. You came, she said. I wasn't sure Brian still had a spine. Brian didn't flinch. We brought something for you. They laid it all on her dining table. The USB. The drive. The signed memos. Evelyn didn't blink. You think truth changes anything? She whispered. Power survives headlines. It always has. Marilyn met her gaze. Maybe, but it remembers the first person who said no. They left her there, not destroyed but unmasked. And in that world, unmasking was the beginning of the end. That night, Marilyn sat in front of a national camera. Beside her, Caroline Westanker at the Guardian live stream introduced her. This is Marilyn Davis, aerospace engineer, whistleblower, and daughter of a man wrongly imprisoned for telling the truth. Marilyn breathed once. My name is Marilyn Davis, and I'm here to speak. She laid it out, all of it. Obsidian, Evelyn, Richard, her father, the cost of silence. Kevin appeared on screen with documents. Brian joined from a separate camera. And by the time the hour was over, number justice for Davis was trending in 14 states. A week later, she sat in the front row of a federal courtroom. The judge's voice echoed. There is incontrovertible new evidence. This court hereby vacates the conviction of Thomas Davis. Marilyn exhaled like she'd been underwater for years. Outside, the world was already waiting. But she didn't stop for the cameras. She walked to the courthouse steps. And there he was. Her father. Thinner, grayer, but still him, still whole. They embraced. No words. Just breath, just presence. And when they finally pulled apart, his eyes gleamed. You did it. She shook her head. We did. Weeks passed. And one night, on a quiet rooftop cafe in San Francisco, they gathered. Brian, Claire, Kevin, her father. No media, no headlines. Just lights, laughter, and relief. Claire raised her glass. To those who spoke when it was hardest. They toasted softly. Then Brian turned to Marilyn. You could run for Congress, you know. She smiled, a rare, full smile. Not yet. What then? She looked at the city below. Her fingers wrapped once again around the silver pendant. I want to build something that can't be buried, she said. Not just for me, for people like my father, for Richard, for anyone who's been silenced. Kevin nodded. You'll need allies. I already have them, she said, looking at them one by one. The wind carried her words like promises. I believe silence ends the moment one person decides to speak. Brian's smile was slow and certain. Then I'm with you. They didn't rush. They stayed until the lights of the city blinked like stars below. And when they left, Marilyn walked at Brian's side. No weight, no shame, no secrets. Only forward.